Hello, this is Eric Santos and Jason Rubo here with us. We are working together on the EDT6010 final project for Concordia University, Chicago. Our project is called 3D Modeling with Tinkercad.
So with the Know Your Learners section, this is a quick breakdown of how our school performs on the park. And if you look at the state level, you can see that 34% of our students either meet or exceed standards. With regards to our demographics, Black and Hispanic are both at 46%, with 5% being white. We also have 1% Asian and 2% of two or more races. When it comes to our low income, we do have 69% of our students at low income. We have 19% that are English learners, meaning with ELL services. We have 13 students that have been identified to have disabilities with IEPs, 504 plans, and such. And then we have 3% of our population is homeless. So with the standards and objectives, we decided to go with the Common Core standard with the 6-8RH7, which is integrating visual information with other information in print and digital text, and then also incorporating some of the new standards as well, the ISTE 1 and 3, which is facilitating and inspiring student learning and creativity, and then model digital age work and learning. With our objectives, we used the DID model, with students will apply knowledge from lessons and tutorials in order to create their own unique creation with 90% accuracy in Tinkercad. And then students will be able to blend multiple technologies with 90% accuracy within a digital created handout that we'll show later on.
All right, so the main teaching strategy that we chose was project-based learning. It's a favorite of ours in the learning technologies class. There are 8 components. First is defining the skills and the knowledge that students are going to need. And we do that by laying out for students what skills within the 3D modeling software they're going to need to do and what project they're actually going to have to create. And then we train them in those skills. The second component is defining the problem. So we give them a challenging problem, which is learn this software and use the tools to create something that's unique to you. The third portion is sustained inquiry, and this is where students are rigorously exploring new ideas and building upon their background knowledge. So we accomplish this by giving them tutorials as well as in-class demonstrations and one-on-one help to help them learn the ins and outs of the software and to help them understand how to use it to create something. Authenticity and student choice are two that are interrelated, I believe, and that are big in this project. Authenticity means this is something that's a real world problem. So we do that by showing them how 3D printing and 3D modeling are used to solve real world problems. For example, prosthetics or creating parts or even within the space program. So they see that the skills they're learning are realistically applied in careers later on. And then student choice obviously comes in because they're allowed to pick and create pretty much anything that they want that's personal to them when they create their project. The last three are reflection, revision, and sharing. So reflection means that students are reflecting on their work and on their learning, and that happens really pretty regularly within the day as they're tinkering around and figuring out how to use the software. But at the end of the project, they also reflect on what they learned, what their challenges were, and how they learned best. Revision happens again on an iterative process on a daily basis. Students are constantly getting feedback on how they're doing, revising their work and adjusting and fixing things, and they're always allowed to revise projects at the end and turn them back in. And then sharing involves not just sharing with the class, but publicly sharing. So they're encouraged to share their public link over the internet to parents. They print out a QR code that they can then use to have people scan, and basically anyone in the world could see their work at any time. An additional theory that we think is relevant is the constructivist theory by Bruner. And there's 2 quotes that really summarize why we picked that. One is go beyond the information given. So students are given the tools, but then it's up to them to go beyond and figure out what do I want to do with these tools. Secondly, the quote, learning is an active process in which learners construct new ideas or concepts. So they're asked to basically take all of the tutorials, take all of the tips that they learn and figure out how to use them and then figure out how to construct something, basically construct something from scratch.
So the technologies we're going to be using, with regards to the 3D modeling, we're going to be using Tinkercad, which is made by Autodesk. And this is the 3D modeling software that they're going to be using online. And it's completely free. They just sign up and they have access to not only create their own, but they can also see others designs as well. And our school is Google one-to-one with the Chromebooks, so we're really big on the Google App Suite. With this, we're going to be using Google Forms, Google Docs, and Google Classroom. The Forms, towards the end, we're going to have the survey that the kids are going to do, and that's going to be created on Google Forms. We're also with our Google Doc. That's what their handout is going to be that you're going to see later on as well, and also the instructions. And then Google Classroom is where everything is going to be held. This is where they're going to turn in their assignment. This is where they're going to be graded. This is where they're going to get their instructions, etc.
Day to day. First day, they are inspired. We provide them with some information and some videos on 3D printing, how it works, and what can be done with 3D printing. They're introduced to the idea that they themselves can 3D model something. On day two, they're given their Tinkercad account, and we help them with setting it up. We give them orientation on the navigation of the site and the basics of how to create a project and work within the site itself. Day three, we use the built-in tutorials. There's 4 basic ones within Tinkercad that students can complete to give them some basic training on the tools. They also are given a checklist that they use to keep track of their training activities. It helps them manage their project, and it helps me keep track of where they're at. Days 4, 5, and 6 are a little bit flexible. These are advanced tutorials that are also built into Tinkercad, but they get into a little bit more detail and are a little bit more difficult. This is also where we start to differentiate and find out which students might need more support and which students are a little bit more advanced in picking things up quicker. Day 7, we introduce the actual project. We give students the rubric, and we give them an outline of what they're going to be creating, and we ask them to start brainstorming and thinking about what object they would like to create. They look at some other ideas for inspiration. Day 8, they start brainstorming and actually taking that and turning that into a 2-dimensional sketch. We ask them to draw what they want to model, but try to decompose it into the shapes that compose the actual object, so they can start to visualize what shapes they would use within the program. On days 9, 10, and 11, and this can be flexible depending on how they're doing, they actually get into the program and start designing, and this is where I walk around helping them. Their peers can kind of partner up and help them with things, and they get constant feedback and constant support in designing. Day 12 is when they're expected to be done with their model, and they'll start creating their actual presentation. So they'll make the template that they're going to use to present to the class. They'll take screenshots and get things ready and hopefully practice the presentation. And on day 13, they present their object and then get some feedback from me, and then they reflect on their learning throughout the
So the differentiation with this, we're going to actually be using the Google Translate extension, and this is going to give us the ability to change the language on the entire page, including the directions, things like that, to the language of the native language of our student that is obviously cannot read English, which will be in Spanish. And then obviously with timeline, the differentiation we're going to be using is just allowing ample time, because obviously in the Know Your Learner section, we do have somewhat of a high-low income amount here at our school. And so we have a lot of students that don't have technology at home. So we want to make sure they have time in class to get this done. And then we're also going to make sure we're available before and after school as well. So with the handouts, we have these 2 handouts. The first one is the directions. The second one is the teacher template example that they're going to use. When it comes to the handout here, you can see just basic directions telling them, what to expect with regards to their presentation, some examples that they can use, kind of like a checklist for themselves. Do you have this? Do you have that? Kind of the criteria that we're going to be using as well for grading. The other handout is actually a template that we make that is put in the Google Classroom, and it'll make a copy for themselves so they can edit it. And from here, they're going to be putting in their information, a few screenshots, a QR code linking to their Tinkercad website so that people can use a QR code reader, scan it, and then it'll bring them to the website so they can see a 3-dimensional version of it, and then telling us a little bit about the hardest part they had with the actual project. Here, our student artifact, this is actually an example made by Eric Santos' daughter. And we see here that she used this. The students would then make a screenshot of this, and this is what they'll attach to their template in order to turn it in.
For our online digital content, the majority of our students are accustomed to using Classroom in all of their classes as their online file management system. So we'll be posting everything for them online. Additionally, the second screenshot that you see is made in Google Docs, and that is a file that we referenced earlier that has a checklist of all the tutorial items they have to complete. And this is also to help them with project management skills, as well as to help us keep track of what they've done and what they've not done. One of the things we have them do is take screenshots of their finished tutorial and paste it right into there so that we can see proof that they have completed each tutorial.
Well, with the conceptual categorization with the SAMR model, we decided that our lesson fit in with the R, which is redefinition, which is tech allows for the creation of new tasks previously inconceivable. And we thought it fit here best because of the fact that this is a completely new thing that the kids have never done before. They're somewhat knowledgeable of 3D printing, but the process of creating a model out of in a 3D rendered space is something that is completely new to them, and so is especially the program Tinkercad. And then obviously, this technology is a transformation, not an enhancement. You could not do this without those components.
For a summative evaluation, the first component is evaluating student learning, and that's going to go on informally on a day-by-day basis, but we are using the rubric that we showed earlier as a final summative assessment of what they've learned and what they're able to create in their final project. And then the other component is evaluating our effectiveness with our units design. And so we're going to use a combination of things within a survey that we give to students at the end. We ask them if the demonstrations done in class, if the tutorials, if peer help, or if just their own research and their own searching online and their own trial and error were the most effective components of them learning. And then we get some feedback from that survey and use that to redesign the unit if needed.
In conclusion, this is a great use of new technologies that the students have never used before. And then we're also incorporating new and old ideas to see these objects in 3D and really kind of expand their knowledge of things they can do with technology. And this is something we plan on going even further with a later unit, with going even deeper into Tinkercad and 3D modeling as well. Thank you for listening to our lesson. I'm Jason Rubo, and this is Eric Santos, and I hope you enjoyed our project.